I'm 92 now, and when you've shared a roof with the same woman for 65 years, you begin to see your life in long, quiet stretches. People think the strain comes from the big arguments. It didn't for us. It was something smaller. I used to come home, sit in my chair, and let the day close around me without saying much. She would set the table, we would eat, and little by little, silence became a habit. Here's the truth I learned too late. Distance doesn't arrive in storms. It settles in daily routines. If you'll stay with me, I want to tell you what that silence cost us and what finally brought us back. I didn't notice it happening. That's the part that still bothers me. You don't feel the distance growing when it's measured in quiet dinners and evenings spent in separate rhythms. For years, I told myself I was just tired. Work drained me. The commute, the problems, the weight of providing, it all felt like enough reason to come home and shut down. I'd sink into that chair by the window, and the silence felt like rest. But here's what I didn't understand then. Silence isn't neutral. It's not just the absence of conflict. When you stop sharing the small things, the frustrations, the odd moments, the passing thoughts, you're not protecting the peace. You're practicing distance. I remember one evening, maybe 30 years into our marriage, she was at the sink washing dishes, and she said something about the neighbor's dog getting loose again. I grunted, didn't even turn my head. She kept talking for a moment, then stopped. I didn't think anything of it at the time. That moment wasn't the problem. The problem was that it was the 1,000th time you build a marriage one day at a time. But you can also dismantle it the same way. Not with cruelty, not even with indifference exactly. Just with the steady choice to let the ordinary go unshared. I thought I was being low maintenance. I thought I was avoiding unnecessary talk, keeping things simple. What I was really doing was teaching her that I wasn't interested, and she learned. There's a kind of loneliness that grows inside a full house. You can be sleeping in the same bed, eating at the same table, and still feel like you're living in separate worlds. We had that for longer than I want to admit. The television became a third presence. We'd sit together in the den, both watching, neither talking. I think we both pretended that counted as time together. It didn't. Here's the part I wish I'd known earlier. Attention is the real currency. Not money, not gifts, not even time in the same room. Attention. The willingness to turn toward someone when they speak, to ask a follow-up question, to notice a change in their expression. I gave my attention to everything except her. I gave it to work, to the news, to my own head. She was just there, constant. I assumed she always would be, and she was constant. That's the thing. She stayed. She kept setting the table, kept asking about my day even when I barely answered, kept trying, long after I'd stopped. I didn't realize how much effort that took. I thought her steadiness was effortless. I didn't see the disappointment she was swallowing year after year. One night, I think I was 79, she said something that cracked it all open. We were getting ready for bed, and out of nowhere she said, "I don't think you see me anymore." Not angry, just sad. I started to defend myself, but she put her hand up. "You don't have to answer now," she said. "Just think about it." I did. For weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And the more I thought, the more I realized she was right. I could describe my co-workers' habits in detail. I knew the newscasters' names. but I couldn't remember the last time I'd really looked at my wife, really asked her something and waited for the whole answer. I'd been living next to her, not with her. That's the mistake, the one I made for too long. I treated presence like it was enough. I thought sharing space meant sharing life. It doesn't. Proximity without attention is just waiting in the same place, and we'd been waiting for decades. Waiting for retirement, waiting for things to ease, waiting for some future version of life where we'd finally reconnect. But life doesn't work that way. You don't get connection later if you're not practicing it now. I started to see all the small moments I'd let slip past. The morning she'd mentioned a dream, the times she'd wanted to show me something in the garden, the 100 quiet invitations I'd dismissed because I was too locked into my own routine. I'd made a habit of not engaging. And habits, once formed, are hard to see and even harder to break. But knowing something and changing it are two different things. I didn't wake up the next morning and suddenly become a different man. The chair was still there. The habits were still there. And part of me still wanted to retreat into that familiar quiet. The difference was I started noticing when I did it. I'd catch myself turning away mid-sentence or reaching for the remote instead of responding, and I'd stop. Not every time, but more often than before. It felt awkward at first, forced. I didn't know how to ask about her day without it sounding like an interview. I didn't know how to sit at the table and just talk. We'd lost the rhythm of it, but she met me halfway. That's what I didn't expect. The first time I asked her a real question, something about a book she was reading, she looked at me like she wasn't sure I meant it. Then she answered, and I listened. Actually listened. That became the starting point, not some grand gesture. Just small attempts to turn toward her instead of away. I learned something important in those early weeks. You can't recover decades in a day. The gap we'd built didn't close just because I'd finally seen it. Trust takes time to rebuild, even in a marriage that never broke. She'd pull back sometimes. I'd ask a question, and she'd give a short answer, like she was testing whether I'd really stay interested. I had to prove it wasn't a phase, that I wasn't just trying for a week and then sliding back. Consistency is what mattered. Showing up in the small moments, again and again until she believed it was real. There were nights I wanted to quit, nights when the old pattern felt easier, when engaging felt like work I didn't have the energy for. I'd think, we've made it this far, what's the point of changing now? But then I'd remember what she said. I don't think you see me anymore. And I'd realize the point wasn't about making it. It was about actually living together, not just coexisting until the end. One afternoon, maybe 6 months after I started trying, she was telling me about a problem with her sister. I was listening, really listening. And when she finished, I asked what she thought she should do. She stopped, looked at me, and said, "You never used to ask me that." It wasn't a criticism, it was more like surprise, maybe relief. That's when I understood how much I'd withheld. Not just attention, but respect. I'd stopped treating her like someone whose thoughts mattered, whose feelings were worth exploring. I'd reduced her to a fixture in my life instead of a person in her own right. You can love someone and still not honor them. I did that for years. The repair wasn't just about talking more. It was about relearning how to value her presence, to treat her opinions as worth considering. to care about her inner world, not just the way she kept our outer world running. We started taking a walk in the evenings. Nothing long, just around the block, but it became our time. No television, no distractions, just side by side, talking about whatever came up. Some nights we didn't say much, but the silence felt different. It wasn't avoidance anymore. It was comfort. I'm not going to tell you we got back everything we lost. Some things you can't recover. There are years I can't redo, conversations I can't have again, moments of her life I wasn't present for, even though I was sitting right there. That weight doesn't go away. But what we did get back was connection. The sense that we were still on the same side, still building something together, even this late. She's 88 now. We move slower. We forget things. But we talk. We ask each other questions. We pay attention. And I'll tell you, the time we have now feels more alive than decades of silent dinners ever did. If there's one thing I'd want you to take from this, it's that the person next to you won't be there forever. Neither will you. And the days you're spending in the same space, not really connecting, are days you don't get back. It's easy to think you'll fix it later. When work calms down, when the kids are grown, when life gets easier. Life doesn't get easier, it just gets shorter. I was lucky. I realized it while there was still time, while she was still willing to meet me halfway. Not everyone gets that chance. So if you're living next to someone instead of with them, don't wait. Don't assume they'll always be patient. Don't let another decade slip by in silence because it feels easier than the discomfort of change. Start small. Ask a question. Listen to the answer. Turn toward them instead of away. It won't fix everything overnight, but it's a beginning. And sometimes a beginning is all you need. At this age, I understand something I didn't when I was young. Love is not sustained by history. It's sustained by attention. The meaning of a life together isn't found in the years you accumulate, but in the moments you actually enter. That's a simple truth and an easy one to ignore. We all drift if we're not careful. But if you notice the drift, you can still turn the boat. I'm grateful I learned that before our time ran out. And tomorrow, if I wake up beside her again, I intend to keep turning toward her.